Welcome to the Cloud Pod, where the forecast is always cloudy. We talk weekly about all things AWS, GCP, and Azure. We are your hosts,
Justin,
Jonathan,
Ryan,
and Matthew.
Episode 319, recorded for August 26th, 2025. AWS Cost MCP, your billing data now speaks human. Good evening, Matt and Ryan. How you doing?
Doing good.
I mean, you look fresh and awake. You look great.
We might have woken him up. It's fine.
You woke up from a nap, so you're fresh, ready to go.
Exactly.
I missed all the prep, so that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, but how much prep do we actually do here?
It'll probably be better this way.
Yeah, I mean, it could go either way. We typically, try to watch the news and stuff. Well, let's jump right into it then and see how Ryan does here. Musk's XAI is suing Apple and OpenAI, alleging a scheme that has harmed them. Basically, they're saying anti-competitive practices in the AI chatbot distribution, claiming Apple deprioritizes competing AI apps like Grok in the App Store while favoring ChatGPT through direct integration into iOS devices. The lawsuit highlights tensions in AI platform distribution models where cloud-based AI services depend on mobile app stores for user access, potentially creating gatekeeping concerns for competing generative AI providers. Apple's partnership with OpenAI to integrate ChatGPT into iPhone, iPad, and Mac products represents a shift towards native AI integration rather than app-based access, which could impact how cloud AI services reach end users. The dispute underscores growing competition in the generative AI market, where multiple players, including xAI's Grok, OpenAI ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and Perplexity, are vying for your eyeballs. So in general, I don't know that I agree. Did they ask did they ask Grok, like, hey, is Apple purposely keeping your numbers down? And of course, it probably hallucinated. Yes, it is, of course. And so that's not reason to sue them. But, again, it's one of these weird, there's always a potential conflict of interest when you have a partnership like that. But also the App Store, there's a ton of companies that track downloads and track usage of these things. I don't know that they have hard evidence here other than this is just a way to keep Apple distracted while they keep making Grok better.
I mean, I feel like this is no different than Chrome integrates with Apple have Google integrated as the native search engine. I feel like it's kind of the same thing. They chose a partner, they integrate with it. That's the default. There's other options out there. You could go find them if you really want Grok. I'm sure you could search the App Store for Grok and it'll pull it up. I feel like this is more of a nuisance lawsuit. It's possible I'm wrong.
I'm trying to remember, I kind of feel like in the early 2000s, Google sued Apple for something like this, but instead of AI, it was about mobile access and apps versus search. And I think it's just new technology and figuring that out. And I don't think there's much merit to this website or this lawsuit either, right? It's Apple's allowed to partner with OpenAI to build it into their product. That's a thing. And then if Grok wants to compete with that, fantastic. But I don't think they're gonna get anywhere with this.
Yeah, I think it was Microsoft who sued Apple.
The Microsoft, that makes
for Bing, because I think Google and Apple had the partnership, which that one's a little different. That's actually why Google got into some antitrust problems now, where they were paying for placement and they could outbid everybody because of their monopoly, and that's a different problem.
Yahoo stayed out of it because we're no one's going to do apps. That's not a thing. We'll just do mobile websites for everything. That wasn't a good plan.
That didn't work out.
No.
They're still doing it. It's fine.
Yeah.
They found their path and they're going with it no matter what. Guys.
Mm-hmm. One other CEO is fighting each other. AWS CEO says AI replacing junior staff is the dumbest idea ever. Amazon CEO Matt Garman argues that using AI to replace junior developers is counterproductive since they're the least expensive employees and most engaged with AI tools, warning that eliminating entry-level positions creates a pipeline problem for future senior talent. Garman criticizes the common metric of measuring AI value by percentage of code written, noting that more lines of code don't equal better code, and that over 80% of AWS developers already use AI tools for various tasks, including unit tests, documentation, and code writing. The CEO emphasizes that future tech workers need to learn critical thinking and problem-solving skills rather than narrow technical skills, as rapid technological change means specific skills may not sustain a 30-year career. The directive aligns with AWS's push for their Kiro AI coding assistant, while acknowledging that AI should augment rather than replace human developers, particularly as organizations need experienced developers to properly evaluate and implement AI-generated code. Garmin's comments come amid industry concerns about AI's impact on employment and follow recent issues with AWS's developer tool that had security vulnerabilities, highlighting the ongoing need for human oversight in all AI development. So yeah, in general, don't get more expensive than the AI, and you'll be safe.
I mean, I do really think that the industry is using AI wrong, and I think the layoffs are a sign of that. And I think that it is really easy to say like, oh, well, our mid to senior developer staff can now do all of these junior tasks, so let's replace it. But I agree. I don't think that's a sustainable model. And I think it'll course correct over time to be something that like what Garmin's saying here, because I think that it's going to be a tool that we all use, and whether you're junior or senior, it'll be part of your workflow, and it will change the way you work. I know it's changed the way I work, but yeah.
I think we're in the silent recession, if I were to name it something, and I'm going to trademark that right now.
Nice.
But I think where companies are adjusting post-pandemic, they're right-sizing their organizations. A lot of them got overly bloated in management and different areas. And so AI has become an easy excuse right now versus blaming tariffs and other economic headwinds that they're facing and macro climate issues, because those are politically sensitive with, the White House and what's going on over there. And so if we can blame something like AI, we can basically reduce our staff with this answer, reduce our salaries, and be better aligned to this silent recession we're all living through right now, where, yeah, things are okay, but it's all on a teetering brink of despair, it feels like, at any moment.
Yeah, I think, and we'll see, like, over the course of, the next set of decades, companies who wield AI, more strategically and not just sort of use it as a crutch or an excuse. I think that you'll see them be very productive in only a few years.
Yeah, I think so too.
The piece of this that kind of stuck with me a little bit more was, around, you can't just learn a language, and that's what people have done for so many years, learn a language or two. And AI is kind of saying you don't need to learn the language, you need to learn how to think about it. And that's one of the things that, my school taught us was, like, we learned, I'm going to call it a made up programming language. It was called Dr. Scheme when I learned it, which was a Lisp fork. And it was really just teaching people the concepts of programming and something you couldn't just Google and whatnot. And it was that critical thinking that really it taught you. And I was lucky enough, I went to a high school that had software development. So for me, it was a different way to think about it and really forced that it's not a language. These are general concepts you need to do. And that's kind of what I feel like AI is going to really force everyone into, is down that path of, this is the general what you need. You need recursion, you need loops, you need these general things. Go put these things into place over here. And AI can do the syntax of, is it for? Is it for each? Is there parentheses? Is it white space sensitive? What's the syntax of the language? It can handle all that for you as long as you kind of more specifically guide it to what you want.
Teaching a made up coding language is probably the best idea I've heard in a long time. Like,
I mean, it's a real language. If you Google it, it would, let me see.
I get it. I mean, no, but it's like, it
has a whole Wikipedia page about it.
That's cool.
I mean, I learned Scratch, which was kind of a similar idea. Basically that's when I started. It was like, here's this cartoon little character guide. You make him do things and use coding concepts to figure it out. And like you outgrow it very quickly where you're like, okay, now I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
But it's to get the basic concepts, to be able to put it into something that makes sense, or use a language that isn't as easy maybe, or doesn't have all the documentation that you can go copy paste from Google, like a Lisp variant. I can only imagine. It's probably good, and it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, it now looks like it's in the Racket family of programming languages.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
I do vaguely remember a little bit of Racket around the same time I was doing Scratch stuff, so I don't remember it exactly, but I do sort of vaguely recall some Lispy type stuff that was like, oh, this sucks.
I mean, the biggest thing for me about those was there's no variables. You have to like learn to pass stuff across and really track your data flow. through there, as well as like loops and recursion are a key concept. Though trying to watch a TA teach recursion when I had learned it in the past was hilarious. And I ended up I remember sitting in my freshman year dorm, teaching 5 people the concepts of recursion because people couldn't figure out the way the TA was teaching it. It was one of those vivid memories that you will never forget in your life for no apparent reason.
Yeah. I mean, at least you, when I was in my first or second job was when object oriented became big.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn how to rewrite programs in object oriented. And I was like, I hate everyone. This was a terrible choice. Why did I do that? It took me a while. Then one day you wake up and you're like, oh, I understand object oriented programming. And now I can do this. But I think everyone kind of had that moment. I was sort of jealous of the new college grads who all learned nothing but object oriented. So I was like, because the old way was fine. It worked just fine, but it's so much better to think in an object oriented way. But it took me a little longer to get there. It was there were some basic concepts of it I remember, but nothing that came later. So, all right, moving on to AWS. We got tokens, and you got to count those tokens. And so Amazon is giving you the ability to now count your tokens with a count token API for Claude models, allowing developers to calculate token usage before making inference calls, which helps predict costs and avoid hitting rate limits unexpectedly. The API addresses a common pain point where developers would submit prompts that exceeded context windows or trigger throttling, only discovering the issue after the fact and potentially incurring unnecessary costs, or the nasty rejection letter. The feature enables more efficient prompt engineering by letting teams test different prompt variations and measure their token consumption without actually running inference, particularly useful for optimizing system prompts and templates. Currently limited to Claude models only, this suggests Amazon is prioritizing Anthropic's integration while potentially planning similar support for other Bedrock models like Titan or third-party options. For cost-conscious organizations, this pre-flight check capability allows better budget forecasting and helps implement guardrails before expensive model calls, especially important as enterprises scale their AI workloads. Now, I appreciate the idea of allowing better budget forecasting, but budget forecasting does not move at the scale of AI. So there's no way that you're getting an accurate forecast unless you have very specific prompts that you're going to reuse a lot of times.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like this is much more useful for, hitting the 429 errors of rate limit exceeded than anything. If you're going to send in data, and making sure you're not going to use too many tokens. Is it 429 for too many tokens?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. But that in advance and getting the error, then having to handle it. You can do that pre-flight check and figure out, then send it back to your user versus error-based programming. We're really talking about programming philosophies today.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone's trying to figure out how to visualize the resource usage of AI because we haven't figured it out yet. I still don't understand how this works. I'm getting better at understanding some of these concepts, but it's still vague. And, if someone asked me to calculate, a model or future usage, I wouldn't be able to do it. And so I think we'll probably flail around trying to figure this out for a while before we get it.
AWS is releasing an open source Model Context Protocol, or MCP server, for billing and cost management that enables AI assistants like Claude Desktop, VS Code Copilot, and QDeveloper CLI to analyze AWS spending patterns and identify cost optimization opportunities. The MCP server includes a dedicated SQL-based calculation engine that handles large volumes of cost data and performs reproducible calculations for period-over-period changes and unit cost metrics going beyond simple API access. The integration allows customers to use their preferred AI system for FinOps tasks, including historical spend analysis, cost anomaly detection, workload cost estimation, and AWS service pricing queries without switching to the AWS console. The server connects securely using standard AWS credentials with minimal configuration required and is available now in the AWS Labs GitHub repository as an open source project. By supporting the MCP standard, AWS enables customers to maintain their existing AI toolchain workflows while gaining access to comprehensive billing and cost management capabilities. And all I want to know is, can I ask the MCP to tell me what the hell EC2 other is?
A long time ago, I was digging through a bill and it was like $5. And for the hell of it, I opened up a ticket with and went back and forth for a week trying to figure out what was in EC2 other, and they could never tell me.
No one knows, man. Secret.
It's a secret.
Yeah.
It's how they tax you. You can't figure it out, but we're going to tax you.
If the AI using MCP for the AWS building doesn't just throw its hands up in the air and say, I don't know, man, then I'm thinking everything else it says is a hallucination. Because I've been asked that question and had to look at the bill so many times that's the only
and
response.
you can get like point in time view of it, like your EC2L. Like, okay, I see what you calculated into it, but then like you want to trend it or do anything else with it, like, yeah, forget it. Like all of a sudden the AWS Cost Explorer gets dumb. Like, oh, you want to analyze why it's higher this month than last month? Like, don't talk to me. Like, that's foolish talk. Because the problem is that you're getting into like different metric scales. Like, oh, you're talking about gigabytes transferred for the network side versus minutes consumed, and it falls apart so quickly once you get into EC2 other, and it has so many different variables and how it bills that gets complicated. Just proving that DB2 is still the best database. Amazon is now providing you read-only replicas, up to 3 of them, in fact, per database instance, enabling customers to offload read-only workloads from primary database and improve application performance through asynchronous replication. Read replicas can be deployed within the same region or cross-region, providing both performance scaling for read-heavy applications and DR capabilities through replica promotion to handle read-write operations. The feature requires IBM DB2 licenses for all vCPUs on a replica instance, which customers can obtain through AWS Marketplace on-demand licensing or bring their own licenses, which you're definitely going to want to do because I'm pretty sure the on-demand pricing is going to be high. This edition brings RDS for DB2 to future parity with other RDS engines like MySQL and PostgreSQL that have long supported read replicas, making it more viable for enterprise workloads. Key use cases include analytical workloads that need consistent read performance, geographic distribution of read traffic, and maintaining standby instances for disaster recovery without the complexity of managing replication manually. So yeah, if you're into the DB2 side because you run a mainframe, you now have an option in AWS. Best database ever.
What year was DB2 released in? Fun fact of the
I don't know.
without Googling it, Justin.
As I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
1983.
What? Wow. That's crazy.
Well, if you want to be more shocked, IMS, which is the IBM's predecessor to it, was launched in 1966. So if you love your flat file databases like Parquet and Iceberg and all those things, you can go thank your grandfather IMS for that. Well, if DB2 is a little too long in the tooth for you and you prefer to have your Postgres delayed, Amazon has you with that this week with Amazon RDS for Postgres now supporting delayed read replicas, allowing you to configure a time lag between source and replica databases to protect against accidental data deletions or modification. The feature enables faster disaster recovery by letting you pause replication before the problematic change propagate, then resume up to a specific log position and promote the replica as primary, significantly faster than traditional point-in-time restores that can take hours for large databases. Available in all AWS regions where RDS Postgres operates at no additional cost beyond standard RDS pricing, making it an accessible safety net for production databases. Addresses a common enterprise need for protection against human error while maintaining the performance benefits of read replicas for scaling read workloads. I believe that the chances of me being able to realize that I screwed up that badly within 15 minutes before this replicated is probably pretty slim.
It does let you do up to a day, but I really just feel like this is like only really useful maybe for like an upgrade or something like that you're doing. Like, okay, we're going to do the upgrade. If it fails, we can leverage this as rollback.
You could do that, sure.
Like that.
I mean, I think ER is also an opportunity for you. Again, like if you get a ransomware attack at 3:00 and you have this delayed 12 hours, right? You can basically fast forward to 2:59 and have all your data before the ransomware attack happens. So there's that use case. You've got, I deleted your table, which I've known to do in production before. It's happened. Don't lie, it's happened both of you too. So there's those opportunities. Again, normally the delay I've seen in other production systems like 15 to 30 minutes, unless I realize I was on the production database and not the dev database when I dropped that table. I don't always realize that within 15 to 30 minutes until someone starts saying, "Hey, nothing's working in prod," and I'm like, "Ooh, I should double check this database real quick." And that's when you learn that you're on the wrong database.
I'm confused, but this is a read replica that you could also query, right? Like that. In theory, yes. You could shard traffic to, and
you could compare. I suppose then in that scenario, you could compare what's in the current database to what's in the database 20 minutes ago to see if your batch process worked.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like the likelihood of me serving the wrong data would be high.
Well, I don't assume that you wouldn't put this into. I guess I don't.
Well,
RDS handles
what's the
for you.
difference between this and a backup then? Like we have snapshots
Yeah.
and, point in time restores, and I get the performance that they're talking about, but it's just kind of interesting to call it a read replica, because I'm sure it is, but it's just also breaks my head.
I mean, it's a read replica. You would only have for this purpose, or you're architecting something weird.
It's a delayed replica. I don't know.
It is weird, right?
I didn't think about that use case, but you're right. That's okay. Well, I assume this will come to MySQL and to the other RDS database families, and eventually DB2 probably as well will also get delayed read replicas.
Apparently,
because now that they built the pattern, everyone else can adopt it. So,
is ransomware attacking ever encrypting tables? You've only ever seen it encrypting full.
If they get into your system to the point where they're encrypting files, there's probably a high likelihood they also got access to other passwords or things that got them into databases, and if they can get to it, they will encrypt it.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody encrypt at the table or database level. I've only ever seen it at the server or
because most people keep those credentials separate.
Yeah.
But in the place where they did not, yes, they're host. So
yeah, but I feel like those people are also the ones that probably aren't running RDS.
They're the people who are your doctors and dentists who run a server underneath one of the chairs in the room, and they're the ones who get ransomware and totally owned.
Right, and that's my point.
They're definitely not using an RDS delayed read replica to help them.
Right, and that's
but
but
a lot of the ransomware compliance is just checkbox anyways. We have a way to do this, and in the event we got ransomware, we have protected backups, and we have all these things, and the reality is that at a larger enterprise company, so much security has failed to get ransomware at that level that you have other problems. But government gets hit all the time, so I don't know.
I mean, it's a really good thing that you can throw nuclear hammers at for being able to restore stuff. It's expensive. You pay that for that premium, but it's also, if you're protecting yourself against ransomware, you're right, there's several other layers that have failed, but also having just a completely offsite copy of this or read ones kind of for write once is an easy blanket you can throw over everything to make yourself feel better.
Well, a month ago, Amazon Prime Day happened, and I didn't buy anything, at least that I recall. But I did, was anxiously waiting to get this blog post, which is the annual "How did AWS scale to new heights for Prime Day 2025 with key metrics and milestones?" My favorite article of the year, typically, other than Pi Day, which is my other favorite article of the year.
I thought it was playing the sound when we have to do quarterly.
Well, that's just me trolling you.
Okay.
Yeah. That's really not about. It's not my favorite Amazon announcement. That just see if I can catch you off guard with the sound. That's also a great joy for me. Or any other time I bring in sound effects, which I do occasionally drop in a bunch for the show. Never done in a while. My favorite still is the court that I did with Peter, though. That was probably my favorite one.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, it was Cloud Court because he had contended something.
And
I brought evidence.
I remember
to
that
bear.
episode now. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. All right. So basically, this article, has a couple of things that are interesting. First of all, this is the first one I think not been written by Jeff Barr because he went and retired from the blog. But they said this year marks a significant transformation in the Prime Day experience through advancements in generative AI offerings from Amazon and AWS. Customers using Alexa Plus, the Amazon next generation personal assistant, now available in early access to millions of customers, along with AI-powered shopping assistant Rufus and AI shopping guides. And those features are all built on 15 years of cloud innovation and machine learning expertise from AWS, combined with deep retail and consumer experience from Amazon, helping customers quickly discover deals and get product information, complementing the fast free delivery that Prime members enjoy year-round. So basically, they had record-breaking sales. They do all part of their earnings, yada, yada, yada. No one cares about that. But Prime Day, where we care, is all the numbers. And so during the weeks leading up to the big shopping event like Prime Day, Amazon fulfillment centers and delivery stations will work to get ready and ensure operations run efficiently and safely. And for example, the Amazon Automated Storage and Retrieval System, ASRS, operates a global fleet of industrial mobile robots that move goods around Amazon fulfillment centers. AWS Outposts, which are a fully managed service that extends AWS experience on-premise, are running in those facilities as well. And at one of the largest Amazon facilities centers, their outpost sent more than 524 million commands to over 7,000 robots, reaching peak volumes of 8 million commands per hour, 160% increase compared to Prime Day 2024. That's a lot of robots.
Wow.
Getting into easy two things. During Prime Day, Amazon Graviton, a family of processors designed to deliver the best price performance. Okay, Amazon, get off the... powered more than 40% of the Amazon EC2 compute used by Amazon.com. Amazon deployed over 87,000 AWS Inferentia and AWS Trainium chips, which are custom silicon for deep learning and generative AI training, to power Amazon Rufus for Prime Day. SageMaker AI, a fully managed service where AI provided low-cost machine learning, processed more than 626 billion inference requests during Prime Day. ECS and Fargate for containers launched an average of 18.4 million tasks per day on AWS Fargate, representing a 77% increase from previous year's Prime Day average.
Wait, let's go back to the Graviton. Why did they only say use 40%? Like, if they're pushing Graviton so much, shouldn't they use 80, 90% more? Like,
I mean, not all workloads are, not all workloads will work on Graviton.
I know, but you would think by now, since they've been pushing where we're in Graviton 3 or 4s, like,
I mean,
maybe
I imagine
workload?
there's also the challenge of getting enough GPUs. They don't have enough GPUs in all the boxes. I mean, if they didn't have the GPU and the AI need, they probably would have been much higher. I think last year they were higher on Graviton, but
yeah,
I imagine availability of GPUs is the bigger driver. The fault injection service ran over 6,800 fault injection experiments, over 8 times more than they did in 2024, to test resilience and ensure Amazon.com remained highly available during Prime Day. That's just risk that you're incurring for no good reason other than to say you did this. AWS Lambda, the serverless compute service that lets you run code without managing infrastructure, handled over 1.7 trillion invocations. The API Gateway processed over 1 trillion internal service requests, a 30% increase in requests on average per day compared to Prime Day 2024. CloudFront delivered 3 trillion HTTP requests during the global week of Prime Day, and a 43% increase in requests compared to last year. And EBS storage peaked at 20.3 trillion I/O operations, moving up to an exabyte of data daily. That is a ton of data.
Wow.
Yep.
So cool.
So cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I agree with you about the fault injection. Like, I get why you're saying, like, increasing it 8x times.
I mean, the thing is, it's part of your culture and it's part of how you design your systems. Chaos engineering during big events is exactly what you want to do, because you're actually testing at scale and you're doing everything. If you're, what I don't want our listeners to take away from this is like, hey, I should install Fizz and use it on Black Friday. And
yeah, okay.
If you haven't had a culture of that chaos testing and the resiliency and the redundancy built into your engineering culture for more than a year, do not do that. That's all.
I read this as they ran them in advance. They didn't run during the event.
That's also what I read, is that they're leading up until the
because we ran
date they tested it.
Yeah, in 2024. Well, that doesn't mean they didn't run any during the event itself. That's at least the way I read it.
I don't know. It's not worded in a way I could tell either way.
Yeah.
But you're probably right. Probably not before or during, but before.
I mean, they're ballsy, but I doubt they're that ballsy. Why did Amazon.com go down? Well, we decided to run some chaos engineering in the middle of
our... decided to break DNS.
Who's so fired? Yeah, someone's so fired. That's not a good plan.
I feel like they didn't do it during that day, but maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, maybe it's just built into the platform, and because I know that they're all the white papers I've read about how they do deployments and stuff like that. It could just be built. That's how they deploy software. That's maybe that's how they deploy scaling. So, could be.
Well, I got more big numbers for you guys if you want to keep going.
Oh yeah,
I like to interrupt you. It's more fun.
No, it's fine. It was a good spot. We talked about a lot of the cool big things. Let's get into databases. Ryan's favorite topic.
Yeah, for real.
They processed 500 billion transactions and stored 4,071 terabytes of data and transferred 999 terabytes of data to Postgres, MySQL, and DSQL. DynamoDB, their serverless, fully managed distributed NoSQL database, maintained high availability while delivering single-digit millisecond responses and peaking at 151 million requests per second. That's a lot of requests. Elasticache peaked at serving over 1.5 quadrillion daily requests and over 1.4 trillion requests in a minute. And Kinesis DataStream, their data stream service, processed 807 million records per second during Prime Day. And SQS had a new peak traffic record of 166 million messages per second.
Holy crap.
So that's databases and eventing. So that was exciting. And then we do have a little bit of security stuff too for you, Ryan. Have a comment on this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm actually curious to know what caches they use. I assume they use all of them, but it'd be interesting to see how much they've taken on Valkyrie
versus
still using any of the other ones, Redis and the other ones. I assume like anything Redis, they just swapped over. But
I'm pretty sure they're off of Redis completely. I imagine they might be using some Memcached in front of some databases.
Yeah, just because it's more native in some places.
Yeah, but I imagine primarily for the web tier, they're very heavy Val key shop.
Yeah, that would be my assumption too.
Yeah, I mean they built Memcache. The only reason why you would have built Memcached when they did was because you were using it internally. Because it was already kind of on the way. I mean, you can use Redis for that purpose as well, but it's not as good as Memcache for that.
I was gonna say those services. Elasticache has been around for ever. I feel like because
long time.
Yeah, I remember like the original DevOps exam. They were talking about those and which ones you can scale and restore and which ones you can't. It's like one of those fun, dumb questions that which is why they redid the exams.
Well, on the security side, GuardDuty, their intelligent threat detection service, monitored an average of 8.9 trillion log events per hour, which was a 48.9% increase from last year's Prime Day. And CloudTrail, their activity and API usage system, processed over 2.5 trillion events during Prime Day 2025 compared to 976 billion events in 2024. Whew, that's a lot of data.
For GuardDuty, is it that they've added new features? Or is it...
I mean, they have definitely added a lot of new things to GuardDuty this year, so I'm sure that's a contributing factor.
Load is also going to drive,
yeah,
logging transactions and different things, and so pretty cool. I wish they said results of that, because it's like, oh, we spent $6 billion on GuardDuty and it didn't find anything.
How many false positives did GuardDuty find during the event? That's what I like to know.
Like that would be, because it's like, I'm not suggesting that you not have it, because you have to have insight, and this is the only way to really get at some of this data in AWS is via GuardDuty. But I always want, as a security engineer, you always have to question the value. And so you can't just increase costs exponentially for these things. You have to apply it.
You've not met a lot of security departments then.
No.
You're a security person. That sounds like
this is the thing. I'm a pretend security person coming from the infrastructure. We all know this. Yeah.
You're a newly converted person to security. When do you get to the point where you don't care about those things anymore? Does that come later in your transition, or
it depends on how far into the dark side I fall? I think there's a maybe I'm the chosen one, and I will rewrite how security teams.
It's when we kick him off the podcast.
How many CISOs have you met that are open to new ideas or change?
Maybe I'll be the first. No, because then I'd have to be CISO.
All right, let's move on to GCP. But congratulations, Amazon, on Prime Day. Congrats.
In that article, they talked about AWS Countdown. Do you guys?
Oh yeah, that's their event thing. It had a different name before.
IEM, infrastructure
event management. Which they were always pitching to us like, "Hey, you're gonna do a launch of a product. You should do an IEM." And I'm like, we don't do that much data. Like, even when we launch a new product, like, it's not like everybody gets access to that thing and everyone uses it day one. It takes like months for them to do things that never made sense for us. But yeah, if you have a big Black Friday type event, or you're launching some massive new B2C thing, the countdown service is a way to get kind of like the bat phone to a bunch of people at Amazon who will help make sure your launch goes smooth. They'll evaluate your things in advance. They'll look at your well-architected framework and make sure that's all good, and that if something does have a big go wrong during your massive launch or sport event or whatever, they will be there to help you fix it. It's a good service. I think you pay a little bit for it as well now, before it used to be free.
It does say countdown engagements each year at no cost. So it's maybe like once a year you get
I think if you're an enterprise support, you get a couple a year
in
your enterprise support. I think if you don't have enterprise support, you pay for them.
It seems like an interesting thing, but also at that point, they say we only recommend you do it at least 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the critical event. If you have an architectural issue at that point, it's probably too late to fix it at 2 to 3 weeks beforehand. So feels like something you would.
No. You're forgetting all solutions are just throw more capacity at it.
Sorry, I forgot to pull the lever of add more servers and scale up and out to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on your event, when all eyes are on you, you don't give a crap about the cost.
No.
You want it to be smooth.
No.
So.
And
I've
2
definitely
weeks,
been there
2
where
weeks
I'm like-
before, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You don't want it, if you know about it in advance, you want to try to avoid that train wreck.
Well, then you can at least tell your CFO that he's going to hate you in 4 to 6 weeks, and then you get your bill.
Set the expectations really high so it comes in a little lower, and maybe you're not fired. You're just in trouble.
Yeah, the event's looking to cost us, $3.5 million, and then come in at $1 million, and I'll be very happy with you. All right, Google. So Google has diversified its AI developer tooling into 6 distinct offerings, which we've talked about, and so they decided they should write you a blog post to try to figure out which one to use, which I find hilarious. Jules for GitHub automation, Gemini CLI for flexible code interactions, Gemini Code Assist for IDE integration, Firebase Studio for browser-based development, and Google AI Studio for prompt experimentation, and the Gemini app for prototyping. Tools are categorized by interaction model, either delegated agentic, supervised, and collaborative, each targeting different developer workflows and skill levels. Joule stands out as a GitHub-specific agent that can autonomously handle tasks like documentation, test coverage, and code modernization through pull requests with a free tier and paid Pro and Ultra options. Firebase Studio enables non-professional developers to build production-grade applications in a Google-managed browser environment with built-in templates and Gemini-powered code generation during its free preview period. And those apps will not scale, so be prepared for that. Most tools offer generous free tiers with Gemini model access with paid options, providing higher rate limits and enterprise features through Vertex AI. But if you are confused about all of these different tools, and even here at the CloudPod, I've been confused a few times. Like, okay, they already have that, and this is a nice little way to kind of see how Google is thinking about the desegmentation of these products and tools, and worth the cheat sheet for you.
Well, and the Gemini app, like a lot of the documentation that is accompanying the app is very likely to lead you astray in terms of whether this is something that can handle a production, deployment referencing that API endpoint, because it's like it says things like take an idea from your brain into production in minutes, and it's not built for that. And so when you start using a scale, Google actually gets mad at you. They're like, wait, what are you doing? So, and I've had to talk people out of using it because it isn't really the same thing as the managed service like Vertex AI, where they've built capacity and scaling into it and charging more. Yeah, so I think it's good that they're calling this out. Like, I think it is confusing for some people. I think people don't understand what Code Assist versus Jules is, for instance. Like, I think it is difficult for people to sort of understand there.
Yeah. Well, and I think getting into more and more agentic use cases, like Jules is cool for those type of use cases because you can give it you're giving a very specific set of tasks that you want it to do inside of a pull request. Versus where, doing some of the IDE like Gemini CLI or IDE integration tools, like that's where we're interactive, like we're doing it together. And so like it's good to have that context, and I think it is helpful. But it's also like, can't you just make your tool have different modes and we don't have to have 12 different things installed? But it's probably too early for that era.
Well, and they are a lot of these things do have different modes, like just the moving from like the ask model for generative AI into the agent model, and then now you can have sub agents. But I think a lot of these distinctions are access and where they run, and I think that's where the separation really is. So like Jules for GitHub, for instance, versus Gemini CLI, like they're going to have access to very different things, right? One is directly interacting with the GitHub API and managing via API actions within your GitHub ecosystem. The other one's on your laptop, so it's, do you want to call them all the same thing? I don't know. More stickers. I like more stickers.
It's like stickers.
There are a lot of cloud cost management tools out there, but only Archera provides cloud commitment insurance. It sounds fancy, but it's really simple. Archera gives you the cost savings of a 1 or 3 year AWS savings plan with a commitment as short as 30 days. If you don't use all the cloud resources you've committed to, they will literally put the money back in your bank account to cover the difference. Other cost management tools may say they offer commitment insurance, but remember to ask, will you actually give me my money back? Archera will. Click the link in the show notes to check them out on the AWS Marketplace.
Google launched its Gemini 2.5 Flash image on Vertex AI in preview, adding native image generation and editing capabilities with state-of-the-art performance for both functions, feature built in SynthID watermarking for responsible use. The model introduces 3 capabilities: multi-image fusion to combine multiple reference images into one unified visual, character and style consistency across generations without fine-tuning, and conversational editing using natural language instructions. So when it misspells your words that you asked it to put into the image, you can now tell it what to fix, and it'll actually do it, which is kind of early adopters include Adobe integrating into Firefly and Express, WPP testing it for retail and CPG applications, and Figma adding it to their AI image tools, indicating broad enterprise interest across creative workflows. The conversational editing feature allows iterative refinement through simple text prompts, maintaining objective consistency while enabling significant adjustments, a capability that Leonardo AI's CEO described as enabling entirely new creative workflows. Available now in preview on Vertex AI with documentation for developers, this positions Google to compete directly with other cloud providers' image generation services while leveraging their existing Vertex AI infrastructure. Really, there's only one other one, which is ChatGPT, and then there's all the specialized models that just do images. But I don't know how competitive it is other cloud providers, because Titan doesn't do images, Claude doesn't really do images either. It'll describe beautifully an image that you can go give to
something
Gemini
else.
to go create the image. But to actually have a generated image, it's something Claude does not do.
Yeah. Now you too can make your own Michael Jackson video where you're morphing every type of person into the other type of person.
I don't know if you guys remember, I complained about how expensive VO was.
Yeah.
And so now you can make 3 videos a day with VO in Gemini Pro.
Oh.
So they're not super long videos, but you can now do 3 videos. So if you want to play with that, you can now do it in Gemini Pro.
That's pretty rad, actually, because I've stayed away from it because I'm like, oh no, I will get myself into trouble.
Yeah, accidentally run something and go back to the AWS conversation of you get the bill at the end.
Well, and then once I get started, right, and I start nitpicking at it, like I can't stop. Like I want it to be, it's so close. Well, just one more thing, and then I have to sell a kidney.
You only need one of those. You're fine.
You're too much of a perfectionist for that kind of 3 limit.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. But again, if you use other things to help create the instructions for the prompt and then give it the prompt, you'll have a much better time to have that work out. So
AI all the way down.
All right, Google Cloud Assistant is now your new master investigator. It's a new AI-powered root cause analysis tool that automatically analyzes logs, configurations, metrics, and error patterns across GCP environments to diagnose infrastructure and application issues, reducing troubleshooting time from hours to minutes, according to earlier users. The service provides multiple access points, including API integration for Slack and incident management tools, directly triggering from Log Explorer or monitoring alerts, and seamlessly hands off to Google Cloud support with full investigation context preserved. Unlike traditional monitoring tools, this leverages Google's internal SRE runbooks and support knowledge bases combined with Gemini AI to generate ranked observations, probable root causes, and specific remediation steps, rather than just servicing raw data. Key differentiator is a comprehensive signal analysis across cloud logs, asset inventory, app hub, and log themes in parallel, automatically building resource topology and correlating changes to identify issues that would be difficult to spot manually in a distributed system. Currently in preview, with no pricing analysis, positions Google against their rivals like DevOps Guru and Azure Monitor similar AI-driven troubleshooting capabilities.
I mean, this is fantastic. I love these use cases that are coming out. Like, this is the first thing I thought of when Google announced sort of the integrated console access for AI. I was like, that's what I want. I want a little pop-up that says, one of your projects is on fire over here. And being able to quickly get to that, because that's it's the dream, right? When you're setting up your monitoring and alerting dashboards, is you want to very quickly be able to pinpoint where the issue is and what's going on. So I don't know if we ever really got to that point with metrics and logs and dashboards. So we can I think that hopefully this kind of finishes that off.
Yeah, I mean, it was always the human that had to look at your dashboard to say, okay, here's the problem.
Yeah.
And we see this red line spiking over here. That's bad. Versus, in theory, as these things evolve over time, hopefully they'll be able to say, hey, your latency on your database went from, 3 milliseconds to 50 milliseconds and CPU's at 98%. Maybe go look over here. There's a problem somewhere here. Now, automatic fixing it and root cause, I feel like then you're getting into like, hey, your application's causing issue, like getting to that part, but like fixing the problem quickly to like get your infrastructure and get your product back up. That's the dream, at least for me, to get that piece down.
As long as you can define
RPA
rules.
is the next part.
Like I'm okay if AI is going to roll back a version because it's detected high error rates or something like that. But yeah, if it just continues to throw resources at things, I don't want it.
Well, that's what I think somebody was saying that the Microsoft one did at the beginning. Hey, your database is CPU is high. Let's just scale up the automatic SRE one. I was like, ooh, that's not good. Come in and you're at like an 80V core CPU and you're normally at 2. That's when your CFO really hates you too.
And but all your customers are loving you. Like, it's never been faster.
Yeah. The performance.
All my data's in
wild.
memory. It's amazing. Google's introducing automated SQL translation from Databricks Spark SQL to BigQuery using Gemini AI, addressing the growing need for cross-platform data migration as businesses diversify their cloud ecosystem. The solution combines Gemini with Vertex AI's RAG engine to handle complex syntax differences, function mappings, and geospatial operations like H3 functions. The architecture leverages Google Cloud Storage for source files, a curated function mapping guide, and a few shot examples to ground Gemini's responses, resulting in more accurate translations. The system includes a validation layer using BigQuery's dry run mode to catch syntax errors before execution. The key technical challenges include handling different in-window functions like first value syntax variations, data type mappings, and Databricks-specific functions that need BigQuery equivalents. The RAG enhanced approach significantly improves translation accuracy compared to using Gemini alone. I find it interesting that they call out that their product is not as good as Databricks by saying, we'll help you build all the things that you need for equivalence. Like, that's helpful. Thanks, Google. Appreciate that.
Well, that's the you build it or you buy it method, I feel like. So here they're like, well, build it and we can give you AI to build it for you versus...
It shows you that Databricks isn't that differentiated if they say that their AI can basically, fill the blanks in for what you're buying for. Yeah. This is probably more for people thinking about moving off of Databricks partially too.
Yeah. I think it's the same sort of argument we had when AI was redoing, stored procedures or Databricks adding stored procedures, like that kind of thing. So it's just like, I guess meeting customers where they are is a good thing. And, I think solving the data stickiness is a good thing because I would like these things to be more competitive. And I know I have definitely looked at, like, I would love to get this data somewhere else because of cost, because of something, performance or operability. And there's just like, but getting that data somewhere else is just a huge undertaking.
Google is releasing a technical paper detailing their methodology for measuring AI inference environmental impacts, revealing that median Gemini app's text prompt uses only 0.24 watt-hours of energy, or 0.03 grams of CO2e emissions, and 0.26 milliliters of water, substantially lower than many public estimates and equivalent to watching TV for less than 9 seconds. The comprehensive measurement approach accounts for full system dynamic power idle machines, CPU and RAM usage, data center overhead, or PUE, and water consumption factors often overlooked at industry calculations that only consider active GPU TPU consumption, making this one of the most complete assessments of AI's operational footprints. Google achieved a 33x reduction in energy consumption and a 44x reduction in carbon footprint for Gemini text prompts over 12 months through full stack optimizations, including a mixture of express architectures, quantization techniques, speculative decoding, and their custom Ironwood TPUs, which are 30x more energy efficient than their first generation TPUs. Methodology provides a framework for consistent industry-wide measurement of AI resource consumption, addressing growing concerns about AI environmental impact as inference workloads scale, particularly important as enterprises increasingly deploy generative AI applications. Google's data centers operate at an average of PUE of 1.09, and the company is pursuing 24/7 carbon-free energy while targeting 120% freshwater replenishment, demonstrating how infrastructure efficiency directly impacts AI workload sustainability. I appreciate that they gave us a methodology. And I assume that Amazon and Azure will follow suit with their own methodologies that will contradict each other, and then they'll all argue as a committee and eventually come out with a standard in about 4 to 7 years.
When there's a whole organization that comes out to do it for them.
Exactly. But I do appreciate that they're trying something here, which is good. And it isn't, this is reading into more of the detail of the white paper. You can definitely tell they put a lot of thought into how to think about this issue. A lot of the things that I was like wondering about, like, what all the idle capacity, like they covered that, which is great.
Mhm.
So it's not just, consume capacity. It's also what we have sitting around waiting for consumption. And so it's well thought out, at least when I read through the technical,
Mhm.
which I didn't read the whole thing, but I got through about half of it before I was like, I can't read this anymore.
Okay. That's about it. Yeah, like it's these are hard reads, but I mean that is really cool because I do think I like this sort of analytical way of approaching the impact first, because I feel like we've been in this like doom and gloom and dire sort of view of AI is just going to ruin everything and burn the earth for our children. And even I was in San Francisco in a museum, they had an AI exhibit. One of the AI exhibits was water usage for every query, and it was this massive amount of water, and I'm just like, but it's reusing it just like the AI is. In the exhibit, it's actually not wasting it.
Well, last week we talked about the UK is asking you to delete your email to save water and energy, and it was sort of like, I don't think you understand how this works.
Right. Yeah. And so this is the opposite of that, right? Which is like you leading your way up to this conclusion that doesn't actually based on facts. These are the facts. And so whether you can argue whether they, how they got there, but at least they're telling you. I really do look forward to some environmentalist group or someone who's going to have a very skeptical outlook to go through and look at this the review process. And because I'd like to hear that feedback too, just so you could hear sort of both sides. Yeah. But I do think that this is well thought out and they're showing the math.
Yeah. I definitely would like to see someone come back and point at it, and hopefully that does. I'll keep an eye out for someone coming out and saying this is bunk or here's why I don't agree and see what they have to say. But definitely intriguing for sure.
It's a starting point more than anything, I feel like.
Yeah, it's just the beginning of a conversation. That's how I would describe it. I think our understanding of these things will change over time as we learn more. All right. Google Cloud Compliance Manager is entering preview as an integrated security command center feature that unifies security and compliance management across infrastructure workloads and data. It addresses the growing challenge of managing multiple regulatory frameworks by providing a single platform for configuration, monitoring, and auditing compliance requirements. The platform introduces two core constructs: frameworks, which are a collection of technical controls mapped to regulations like CIS, SOC 2, ISO 27001, etc., and cloud controls, platform-agnostic building blocks for preventative, detective, and audit modes. Organizations can use pre-built frameworks or create custom ones with AI-powered control authoring to accelerate deployment. This positions Google Cloud competitively against Amazon Security Hub and Azure Policy Compliance Manager by offering bidirectional translation between regulatory controls and technical configurations. The key differentiator is the automated evidence generation for audits validated through the Google's FedRAMP 20XX partnership, which can significantly reduce manual compliance work for regulated industries like healthcare, finance, and the government. The platform supports deployment in organizations, folder, and project levels for granular control. Available now in preview through the Google Cloud Console under Security Compliance Navigation. While price details aren't provided yet, interested organizations can contact their Google Cloud account team or email Compliance Manager Preview at Google for access and feedback opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, this is the automated evidence generation or gathering is spectacular on these tools, and it's really what's needed. And even from a security engineer standpoint, being able to sort of view those frameworks and see sort of the compliance metrics and how you're performing across those things and what's actually impactful to those is super important too. And I've been using this tool for a while, the last few months. And so they're really helpful for setting up a new heavily regulated environment or coming through and preparing for an external audit. It's just so much easier when you have the evidence gathered already and labeled as evidence of that. And it's already kind of creating your audit narrative for you, from an outside party. So it's going to be viewed a little less skeptically than, when I'm in the interview going, no, it's fine. Everything's fine. Don't look over there.
I mean, it's taking on the tools like Drata, Vanta. There's a bunch of other ones out there. It's taking on all those tools because those third parties. You can tell I've dug into this a little bit recently. They're building their own controls that map to it, and from there, they're making API calls, querying it, and it's just native in the platform. So you hope that in this case, Google knows how to make their environment be CIS, SOC, ISO, FedRAMP compliant better than any of these third parties that then you hand over the data that those tools generate. So it's a good starting point. If you're in one cloud particularly, it's a good point for all that. And if they grow and kind of take on the full SOC and ISO, life cycle, that would be nice too. But at least for your cloud provider, here is all the stuff. It is automatically automated. It is automatically generated. I did nothing to do with it. This runs daily. This isn't me telling you at a point in time. This is literally proof right here. It does it every day kind of conversation. So it makes the auditor, it's the middle finger to the auditor saying, here you go, get out of my room and I don't want to talk to you more. This is the way it was done. And here's the proof for it.
And I don't know if Compliance Manager supports this directly, but a lot of Security Center Enterprise is not limited to just Google Cloud, right? You can configure access of the tool into your Azure and into your AWS workloads, and it will measure the security and monitor the security of all those environments. And so I'm hoping that this actually is something that would be something that you could run across all those clouds collectively, so that you could sort of provide a comprehensive view of your security layout.
I mean, the ones that I've looked at when we were kind of playing this game at work was it isn't just your cloud provider, it's also your identity management. So if you're using Okta or any of those, as your primary identity management, but they also start to integrate into all your source code, into all your third party tools, your Zoom, any of those. So you can really kind of get that full life cycle of all the tools in your environment if you're using ones that they have integrations with. Also, it's a great way to kind of save money because you find all these random small things out there that, oh yeah, we didn't disable it in this one tool, not SSO. We found that, Matthew Cohen still has access to this tool even though he left last week. So it ends up being a little bit of a cost savings game at the first year, at least.
Oh yeah. There's no better cost savings exercise than a security audit that's going to go through and like, what is this thing that has an IP or did for 5 minutes 2 weeks ago? What is that? Is that still needed? Because it's way better to just remove that than it is to secure whatever vulnerability or whatever got triggered. Just boop, no, it's gone.
I don't know what you're talking about. Where it was running, it ran for that 1 minute, then it went away.
Ryan likes the screen test method. Just turn stuff off and see who yells.
I absolutely do. I'm a big fan of that.
I just did that with service accounts recently. So far, knock on wood, no screaming.
At one point, Justin's going to be like, hold on, guys. You guys got to finish off. I got a phone call going.
I mean, it was one of these, Windows service accounts have interactive login or not interactive login. But no one who doesn't pay attention to these things knows what that means. They just check the box. Yeah. And then that becomes a problem later. And using logic, you can determine if that's going to be a problem or not, which is what I did. And I was like, based on what our app is, I don't think that's going to be a problem. And guess what? It wasn't. But people didn't know, and they just checked the box because that was the default, or they didn't know, and they said, well, I don't want to fight this during an incident, so I'll just check the box, not understanding what it actually means. It happens all the time.
Yeah, it's amazing when people don't understand service counts and interactive logins, and to make Ryan happy, how much more secure the world becomes when you don't have interactive logins. At least you dramatically fix our stuff.
All right, moving on to our next story here. GKE auto IPAM dynamically allocates and deallocates IP address ranges for nodes and pods as clusters scale, eliminating the need for large upfront IP reservations and manual intervention during scaling operations. This addresses a critical pain point in Kubernetes networking where poor IP management leads to IP space exhausted errors that halt cluster scaling and deployments, particularly problematic given IPv4 address scarcity. Feature works with both new and existing clusters running GKE 1.33. Unlike traditional static IP allocation approaches used by other cloud providers, GKE Auto IPAM proactively manages addresses on demand, reducing administrative overhead while optimizing IPv4 utilization. Key beneficiaries include organizations running resource-intensive workloads requiring rapid scaling, as the feature ensures sufficient IP capacity is dynamically available without manual planning or intervention. I was sort of confused why all the cloud providers were doing this. And then I connected the dots that, it became part of Kubernetes 1.33, and that's why they're all doing basically IP management. Because they added it to the core platforms, all the managed services can now get it, because this is literally the third cloud provider to announce something about IP address usage.
I think it was Google last week that announced that you could add IP space to existing clusters. And so that's just last week, and that's probably related to this as well, I'm guessing.
Yep.
I'm a little confused on what automatic IPAM does, right? Because it's usually it's used as a tool to sort of catalog and look at capacity. Sure, but what's it going to do? Provision a new subnet? Take an unallocated subnet from someone else?
I think the use of the word IPAM is a stretch.
Okay.
I think it's a market. They were like, how do you what's a thing that does IP man? An IPAM? They're like, it's perfect. Yeah, let's use that in the press release. I don't think it has any actual IPAM capabilities.
Okay. I still don't know what it does then.
It's just IP. It's a spreadsheet to know where your IPs are using. That's basically what I would assume. I mean, the fact there's no screenshots of this thing in the press release is annoying to me.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's anything super fancy like IPAM. I think
I'm sure it's just a dashboard that says that, percentage full.
It's going to be like, these are your IPs that are used by these pods, and this pod is using more IPs than that pod, and that's helpful information. I'm sure it's not bad. It's just it's nothing to get excited about like Blue Cat or any of the other type of solutions. Yeah, scale of confidence. I'm just thinking of anything. Automated allocation and configuration for a valuable time for your team. I mean, it has some basic automation to it. So it probably has a partial automation, but very contained to your GKE. Because to be honest, IPAM shouldn't be in GKE. It should be outside of it.
Yeah.
In the VPC service and then plugged into GKE.
It should be a source of truth it can use. Sure.
Yeah. Well, Google saw that MongoDB compatibility thing that Amazon did and said, we want that too. And so they're giving you Firestore with MongoDB compatibility now available in general availability. It supports MongoDB compatible APIs, allowing developers to use existing MongoDB code, drivers, and tools with Firestore's serverless infrastructure that offers up to 5 nines of availability and a multi-regional application with strong consistency. Service includes over 200 MongoDB query language capabilities, unique indexes, and new aggregation stages like lookup for joining data across collections, addressing enterprise needs for complex queries and data relationships. Enterprise features include point-in-time recovery for a 7-day rollback capability. Is that delayed? Can I get that delayed? Database cloning for staging environments, managed export import to cloud storage, and change data capture triggers for replicating data to services like BigQuery. Available through both Firebase and Google Cloud consoles as part of Firestore Enterprise Edition with pay-as-you-go pricing and a free tier, targeting industries like financial services, healthcare, and retail seeking MongoDB compatibility without operational overhead. This positions Google against DocumentDB and Cosmos DB, which both also offer MongoDB APIs. But only Amazon and Google offer with MongoDB compatibility, so.
Which is important.
Yeah, Azure gets it too, but they don't advertise it that way. So clearly they don't do it
because they don't understand how fun it is to say.
They're still working on non-relational databases. Be nice over there.
I mean, Cosmos seems pretty good, at least what I've seen of it.
No, it is. It's pretty good. I mean, I haven't stress tested it, but in the use cases that I build as like a platform engineer tool, it's great, and the auto scaling works as you need. I've never dealt with it at massive scale though.
Well, GKE is celebrating its 10th birthday. It's now about to become a teenager. Super annoying, but. It's moving to a single paid tier in September 2025 that includes multi-cluster management features like fleets, teams, config management, and policy controller, all at no additional cost, with optional a la carte features available as needed. Autopilot mode, which provides fully managed Kubernetes nodes without requiring deep expertise, will soon be available for all clusters, including existing GKE standard clusters on a per workload basis, with the ability to toggle them on and off. Thank goodness.
That's cool.
GKE now supports larger clusters to handle AI workloads at scale with customers like Anthropic, Moloko, and Signify using the platform for training and serving AI models on TPUs and running global services. And the new container-optimized compute platform in Autopilot delivers improved efficiency and performance, allowing workloads to serve more traffic with the same capacity or maintain existing traffic with fewer resources. After 10 years since launch and 11 years since Kubernetes was open source from Google's Borg system, GKE continues to incorporate learnings from running Google's own services like Vertex AI into the managed platform. I mean, it doesn't run the rest of Google's world, but sure, okay, it runs Vertex AI. Thanks.
So
It's cool. Happy birthday.
Is this mean, are they finally doing away with the GKE Enterprise and Anthos confusion to now it's just GKE and then I buy other stuff? Like, is that what this means?
I think they're basically taking the parts of GKE Enterprise that everyone was mad were paywalled, and they basically have moved them over to this. And then they'll offer add-on things for the other parts that didn't make sense for the package. But they didn't specify which ones, would be add-on or how much those would cost, which is kind of the annoying part of this article. But you definitely, it seems to be a situation where they're recognizing the market confusion. But why they waited for the 10-year anniversary is kind of silly. But, here we are.
I mean, there's a lot that I don't see included in here, so it's sort of like I'm glad, but I'm also confused because it's like some of this stuff is available at the non-enterprise version of GKE. So I don't know.
They didn't do a press release on it before, Orion, so that's the trick.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, and like there was some things like the policy controller. I do vaguely remember being available for all GKE.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it will be interesting to see what they kind of move between the two tiers. But I think it's the right call. I mean, if I was running GKE without autopilot at this point, that'd be silly. So.
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, a lot of autopilot is you have no visibility into the modes. You only have the workloads, and I think a lot of people are not running on autopilot. It's an increased cost, and people like to control their hardware and their node pools and their network access. You do like to control your network access, and
I do like my network access.
You can't do the same. You can't do the same thing in GCP like you can in AWS and just deploy a virtual NIC for them all to use. So that's the big limitation that I see. So, but I imagine that this is probably what they're doing, which is the containers themselves won't have access to your network, but because you have this new ephemeral network, you can just attach to a cluster. It'll probably be an isolated one.
Oh, nice. They haven't updated the edition comparison page between GK editions, but there are, some of the things I'm just glancing here at the list of enterprise features. Lifecycle management, including upgrades and backups. That's the autopilot stuff. Fully supported Kubernetes distributions, cloud cluster auto scaling. That's in both. Okay, so
am I confusing autopilot I thought autopilot was more of their, I forget what it's called in AWS.
I mean, autopilot is just the node type that you set for it. They basically manage the node for you, and then it plugs into either enterprise or standard, I believe. That does have a higher cost. So in the enterprise edition, some of the things that aren't being moved over looks like service mesh.
Yeah. That was the first thing I was looking for.
Multi-cluster ingress, binary authorization, advanced vulnerability insights, the Connect gateway, best practice observability metrics, and long-term support for older versions of Kubernetes clusters isn't in there.
I didn't think you could do multi-cluster ingress. That's awesome. I'd pay for that.
Yeah, that's part of enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, keep an eye on that because I hope they clarify that a little bit more than what they've done in this blog post. It's not very good. Moving on to Microsoft Azure this week. We did not get to Azure Weekly this week to lean on, so we're dealing with Matt, who's on vacation, trying to find us Azure stories. So if we missed,
he did a really good job, by the way. I was impressed.
I'm no, there was no shade in that comment. It may have came across that way, but I was impressed. Like, he coming off of vacation, he basically popped out 4 articles that I didn't find.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
It's where I have to find these things every day that, to see what's going on. It's my world. Same way you feel like Google, we're always Google heavy here because with the world you guys live in every day. But it's 3 versus 1. So,
Yeah. I mean, we're still pretty Amazon heavy too.
That's true.
Because we all share the Amazon background, right?
Because we all like Amazon better than
Amazon has the best web presence of all 3 of them.
Yeah.
Like how they Azure's problem is
the
like
worst.
all of their news is fractured across like 1,000 different microsites that you have to track. And then Google doesn't really do like mini announcements in a way that makes sense for us. Like they'd have a feed, but like we updated these 4 features. You're like, what does that bullet mean? You're like, I don't know. There's no link to figure out what that is. You had to ask somebody. And then they do. I think Google does better blog posts most of the time. But then Azure's just kind of all over the place. So, anyways. First up, Microsoft has evolved from being the closed source punks of the Steve Ballmer era and Bill Gates era to now contributing over 20,000 lines of Linux code in 2009 to becoming the largest public cloud contributor to CNCF over the last 3 years, with 66% of Azure customer cores now running Linux workloads. Azure Kubernetes Service powers some of the world's largest deployments, including Microsoft's 365 Cosmic platform running millions of cores and OpenAI's ChatGPT serving 700 million weekly users with just 12 engineers managing infrastructure. That's because they have ChatGPT to do it for them. Microsoft has open sourced multiple enterprise-grade tools, including Dapper for distributed applications, Cato for AI workload automation on Kubernetes, and Phi for Mini, a 3.8 billion parameter AI model optimized for edge computing. The company's open source strategy focuses on upstream first contributions, then downstream product integration, contrasting with AWS GCP's tendency to fork projects or build proprietary alternatives. Azure's managed services like AKS and PostgreSQL abstract operational complexity while maintaining open source flexibility, enabling rapid scaling without large operation teams, as demonstrated by ChatGPT, handling over 1 billion queries daily.
I'm confused by that fourth thing because they fully backed Redis when they changed the licensing, and the only cloud that did. But we are focused on open source first. But you backed the person that fully moved over to a different license. I guess it's technically an open source license, but not for commercial use. So,
they're just ignoring that one dark corner of their history, I think. And Microsoft is too easy to make fun of because I really like this because this push into Linux and more of this world, but it's also sort of like I read this as we had 20,000 lines of code to bend Linux to our will to make it work at least remotely with Microsoft, products and services. So,
well, and I think this is the reason why we don't hate on Microsoft as much as we used to, 10 years ago. Or even 15 years ago now, is that they did start embracing open source. It wasn't, Windows only and .NET only. And like they acknowledge that they're not the best at everything, which, when you eat a little humble pie, like suddenly now it's like, okay, well, if you're willing to admit that, I'm willing to have a conversation. I'm still not willing to buy Azure. That's just me personally. I mean, Matt's already committed. But, I appreciate that there is that thing. And if I had to be forced to support Azure at some massive scale, I probably would complain a lot about it, but also not be that upset until all the issues that happen to Matt every week happen to me. And then I get really mad. So
to be fair, you have a lot of issues on GCP that I don't have.
True.
And when we were on AWS, we complained about that too. So we're going to complain about wherever we are.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, all of us are complainers, so we're all cynics and everything else. So you got to take a little bit for what we get.
Yeah, I mean, we were just having a conversation in one of the Slack channels, I think, for the last week in AWS, and talking about how US East 1 tire fire is kind of no longer a tire fire, and then it kind of crashed the next day with Cloudflare, which was hilarious. It was like, well, we spoke it into the world that it was bad, but it wasn't a major outage. Like the thing is it's it's gotten so compartmentalized now because it's so big, but number two, they've done a lot of segmentation there. But I know we were complaining about US East 1 all the time
on a daily basis. It was dying.
So every cloud has its own issues and problems, and again, I think. There are workloads that make more sense on Azure. I can admit that. If you're a heavy Windows shop with a lot of SQL Server, Azure is your probably the best bet. If you're, really into, open source and being able to build quickly and break things, I think Amazon is beneficial to you. And if you really like Kubernetes and big data things, I think Google's your place. I think they all have their niche. So,
I mean, that's what I always kind of say: use the right tool, at the right time, in the right place. And depending on what your business is, we'll kind of take that on for you. We'll kind of dictate where you go with it, with everything.
Well, speaking of contribution to open source, Microsoft is giving the Microsoft Document DB, an open source MongoDB compatible database built on PostgreSQL, to the Linux Foundation to ensure vendor neutral governance and broader community collaboration. I don't know how Amazon missed this, by the way, in the lawsuit territory of like, hey, you're stepping on our name. Like I'm shocked that this has happened. The project provides a NoSQL document database experience while leveraging PostgreSQL's reliability and ecosystem. The move positions DocumentDB as a potential industry standard for NoSQL databases, similar to ANSI SQL for relational databases, with companies like Yugabyte and SingleStore already joining the technical steering committee. AWS DocumentDB, though, has remained proprietary since they launched it, although it does basically the same thing. DocumentDB offers developers MongoDB wire protocol compatibility without vendor lock-in using standard PostgreSQL extensions under MIT license rather than requiring a forked database engine. This approach allows existing PostgreSQL deployments to add document database capabilities without migrating to a separate system. The project targets organizations wanting MongoDB-style document databases but preferring PostgreSQL's operational model, backup tools, and existing infrastructure investments. Unlike Azure Cosmos DB multi-model approach, DocumentDB focuses specifically on document workloads with PostgreSQL's proven scalability. The Linux Foundation governance, DocumentDB provides an open alternative to proprietary document databases from cloud vendors, potentially reducing costs for self-managed deployments while maintaining compatibility with MongoDB applications and tools. Now the question is, can I take these DocumentDB extensions and go put them onto Cloud SQL from Google's and get the same thing in Google World without having to use Firestore? That's the real question.
I don't really have much to say with it. I mean, it's good that they're sharing it. It goes back to their prior blog posts, that we talked about. It's a nice to have. Probably should have merged those 2 articles into one conversation.
Probably could have. All right. No comment. Did you guys lose you guys?
Well, if that didn't excite you, man, I've got more excitement for you. With Azure Bastion now supporting connectivity to private AKS clusters via tunneling, which if you were listening to any of our prior episodes, you know that you could just done this with Tailscale a long time ago. But now it's built into AKS. So your Azure Bastion now enables secure tunneling from local machines to private AKS cluster API servers, eliminating the need for VPN connections or exposing clusters to public internet, while maintaining standard kubectl workflows. This feature addresses a common security challenge where organizations want private AKS clusters but struggle with developer access, competing with AWS Systems Manager, Sessions Manager, and GCP Identity Aware Proxy for Kubernetes access. Tunneling capabilities work with existing Kubernetes tooling and supports both private and public clusters with API server authorized IP ranges, reducing operational complexity for teams managing multiple cluster types. This is ideally meant for enterprises with strict security requirements and regulated industries that need private clusters but want to avoid managing complex VPN infrastructure or jump boxes for developer access. I mean, if you're a regulated industry that needs private clusters, I'm pretty sure cost is not your problem.
Yeah, and
Well, it might be if you use this. The pricing model seems outrageous.
no, Azure Bastion is actually normally pretty good. Like we use
Really?
it at my day job. It's really not bad, and it lets you go to multiple places. It's
like a zero trust network solution, right?
Yeah, you pretty much can log in from the console or from your command line and pass. Think AWS SSM, where you could SSM directly to a box. It's a service, so it can jump you right to Windows boxes, to Linux boxes, to Bastion.
But if it's 10 cents an hour or almost 10 cents an hour before data transfer costs, like how is that?
How much data transfer, unless if you're uploading, downloading files over your Bastion host? It's what, $720, $72 a month to get the decimal in the right spot.
I mean, we've long slammed, NAT gateways and that for their hourly charges and the whole thing. And so I'm just a little confused on how, maybe I don't understand how this is deployed. So maybe while they're listing it out as almost 10 cents an hour, it would be something that wouldn't really be deployed for the full hour.
No, it's deployed for the full hour. It's there. It's running 24/7. You can scale it up and down. You only need one to connect to multiple things. So unless if you have multiple completely isolated networks, it's not like you have one, I have one. You don't need 50 of them running. I think there's a limit of 10 concurrent connections per Bastion host or something like that. There is a limit per Bastion when you would need to scale it, but most of the time you don't need to scale it.
Well, and unlike a NAT gateway, you're not paying for the data going. I mean, you're paying only for the data that goes to this Bastion host, which is going to be significantly less than a NAT gateway processes. Because on a NAT gateway, you're basically 4.5 cents per hour for the gateway itself. Then you're paying 4.5 cents for every gigabyte processed through the gateway. Plus, you're paying a data transfer charge on top of EC2 data transfer to the gateway. So the NAT gateway costs get pretty large because all that traffic's constantly flowing typically in a NAT gateway scenario, where this is only when you're accessing one of those hosts. So I imagine that, yes, the 10 cents per hour is a little steep you're not paying at the same level of data throughput as a NAT gateway does. But I don't disagree with you. I think it is a little expensive for what it is, but
It depends. The premium tier actually is pretty cool, where it actually will record everything that happens. So you have that for compliance purposes.
Yeah, privilege access management. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that of it's pretty nice. I mean, we use the standard tier. We've looked at the premium tier a few times, and I think we'll eventually get to it. But it's a pretty nice service, and now that it lets you directly connect to the private endpoint, it's one less networking headache you have to deal with. So if you think about it, what's the cost of running $75 per month versus a VPN and the overhead of running that, or
Or a
managing
dedicated
public IP?
bastion node is also going to be expensive.
yeah, I mean, you're running a compute instance at that point that you have to
Mhm.
patch, maintain, etc. So yeah, I mean, do the ROI calculation before jumping on this plan.
It-
But it might work out just fine.
From what I've seen, it's worth it, worth the price, and it saves a lot of a headache.
And Matt's super cheap. So if Matt says it's worth the price,
That's
I'd trust him.
true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, I do like the security model. Like I like, and we're seeing more and more of this be sort of productized and exposed directly, which is great because it's the days of routing everything through a single tunnel in your VPN and having to deal with that capacity and limitations is over. And so like this is pretty great. This is a lot like the GCP identity aware proxy, which I am a heavy user of, and I'm using it more and more. And so like I like this.
I mean, from a security perspective, you can immediately say, pending you haven't done anything else stupid, there's no public IPs. You use your Azure credentials to get in. So you are, if you think they now forcibly have you with MFA. So essentially you can say to your customers, any access to a box requires two-factor authentication in, which makes a lot of customers immediately kind of go away. Because you're not saying, oh, you have to have, our Palo Alto or our Zscaler IP address or anything like that. It's from there. You can put extra controls on it and allow certain IPs and whatnot if you really want. So there are extra controls that, we've implemented at my day job. But from a day zero, you just can say there's nothing there. And it works really well. Like I've heard very little complaints from my development team, from my ops team, from everyone about the tool. And for $75 a month, it beats a VPN any day of the week.
For sure.
Azure Application Gateway now provisions new instances during rolling upgrades before taking old ones offline through max surge support, eliminating the capacity drops that previously occurred during version transitions. How long has this existed, Matt? That this is a problem.
It's one of those things. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. I have a very love-hate relationship with the App Gateway for such a critical service as a load balancer. And it's your really only native load balancer service. I mean, there's Nginx that you can get as like I don't know what they call it, but like you can buy like Nginx through them, which will run your load balancer. But like as a native service, it's missing so many core features. And like this is one of them, which is like when they would upgrade your load balancer, you can monitor stuff with your resource health. You would get alert saying, hey, the resource is down because the node is offline, because all they're running is scale sets underneath the hood, would be my assumption. And versus adding a node and then subtracting a node, they just would delete a node and replace it. And AWS has had this on EC2 instances for, I don't want to tell a number of years because I remember the press release, so I'm trying to gauge it. Well before COVID, let's start with that. So it's just amazing that this wasn't there and native, and why this is something you even have to think about. It's supposed to be a managed service. The fact that I have to tell it, or I can tell it, and in my case with my day job uses a lot of WebSockets, so I have to tell it this because otherwise it doesn't quite handle WebSockets versus, other things as well with our auto scaling ability there. Tell it the number of nodes, tell it to do these things. It just still feels like a very clunky managed service. And you still have to bring your own certificate.
Sweet. Who doesn't love that?
Rant over.
And
but it's a great feature that they're bringing finally, and less things to deal with, so you get less drops and whatnot. Because versus all of a sudden being down, you will have extra capacity. The question is, will they charge you for that as they do it? Which I'm assuming the answer is yes.
of course. Well, our final Azure story is Azure Migrate now enables direct migration to zone redundant storage disks, which automatically replicate data synchronously across 3 availability zones in a region for enhanced durability and availability compared to locally redundant storage. This feature addresses a key gap for organizations requiring high availability during cloud migrations, as they can now attain zone redundancy from the start rather than converting disks post-migration, reducing operational overhead and potential downtime. ZRS disks provide 12 nines of durability over a given year and protect against data center level failures, making this particularly valuable for mission critical workloads that need continuous availability during zone outages. The feature targets enterprises with strict compliance requirements and those running stable applications where data loss or extended downtime during zone failures would have significant business impact, though ZRS disks typically cost 50% more than standard locally redundant storage. So I think I understand this. So you took an EBS volume on AWS and you basically said, we're going to make that EBS volume now multi-AZ.
Yes.
And that's what this feature is. And to do that, you used to have to migrate the data through robocopy or xcopy or some other terrible method from your old single zone disk to this zone redundant thing. But now you just click in the console and say, now you're zone redundant, and it just does it. Is that my interpretation? Is that correct?
It's a good way to spend some money very quickly.
Yeah. How much does this thing cost over a normal EBS volume?
The volume, I went through a whole exercise recently as we were like doing some FinOps work and playing with our bill. And I learned that the storage or the way pricing works for the bills for Azure, for EBS, for managed disks is like its own level of complexity, because you have like, you can't just say, I want a, you can say I want a 32 gigabyte disk, but if you want a 50 gigabyte disk, you can't do that. You have like certain numbers that you can do, which is its own level of fun. But it looks like that's for snapshots. I'm trying to find it.
I mean, so like, does it have trade-offs? Like, I know in the Amazon world, EBS multi-attach is great as long as you want to handle your own, coordination between the nodes to not overwrite themselves or cause all kinds of blocking issues on the block storage. GCP has a much better regional persistent disk option, which is much better than Amazon. So is this more like AWS's or more like GCP's?
It's more like AWS as far as I understand, with the but you no longer have to be. This is more for like backup. So if you're running a file server in one region, in one zone, and that zone goes down, your data is still in the other zone. So you can spin up a server and attach it, versus having to snapshot in or restore from snapshot and all that. I think that's more the use case of this article that this is attacking than, the multi-attachment feature. So it's more for resilience than, hey, attach it from 2 places at once. That you can already do, and I think it's still tied to a zone. You can't do that cross zone.
I don't think EBS multi-attach allows you to do cross zone.
It doesn't.
I think you
I looked it up.
can, you can connect stuff within a zone, but so like
Yeah, I mean, EBS multi-attach is a joke. I don't like. You had to basically put on top of it like some Mantec or Veritas at the time. But I mean, there used to be like a bunch of custom schedulers for disk operation IOs that you used to do for clustering back on Linux back in the day. And that was that's what Amazon's basically provided with EBS multi-attach. So it's not a great feature. So the fact that this is more like that versus GCP's is kind of a bummer.
Well, this isn't even for that. They already have that multi-attach feature. This is just for data resiliency. So if a zone goes down, you don't have to restore from backup. It's already there. So if you did an auto healing node, or what I always call a scale set of 101 or an ASG of 101, that disk is already in that other zone for you, so you don't have to wait for it to boot back up. The server boots back up, configures itself, attaches the volume, and you're done because it's already in both places.
I don't know. This one feels weird.
I mean, I totally get this, having several workloads where I had to the DR strategy was restore from backup, copy disk, make disk, launch compute node, attach compute node.
Pretty sure I wrote that whole script for you like 4 times.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
At least now you can do, you can restore from snapshot and get disk performance that's expected, versus back at, when you guys wrote that process, that was when you would restore from a snapshot, and then performance would be dog.
Yeah.
With days, while I basically replicated across a bunch of nodes to get through scalability.
But I think that's only if you have like fast snapshot enabled and stuff like that. Like you have to pay for it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Again, this was what 5 years ago, 7 years ago. So I mean, like things have come a long way even since then. But yeah,
There was an article I was reading, Corey Quinn's last week in AWS. It was like things that you used to have to do on AWS that you no longer have to do, and like DD is one of them. Like it was in there, and I was reading it. And I was just like, okay, I've officially been on AWS too long because I remember all these things.
Yep. I'll have to go read that. That sounds fascinating. Corey's second shout out this episode.
All right. And then our final cloud story for this week is DigitalOcean's MCP server is now available. The server enables developers to manage cloud resources using natural language commands through AI tools like Claude and Cursor. The server runs locally and currently supports 9 services, including app platform, databases, Kubernetes, and Droplets. The implementation allows developers to use plain English commands like deploy a Ruby on Rails app from my GitHub repo, or create a new PostgreSQL database instead of writing scripts or navigating multiple dashboards. Security is managed through service scoping, where developers can restrict AI assistant access to only specific services using flags, and this prevents context bloat and limits access to only necessary resources while maintaining audit trails and error handling. The service is currently free and in public preview, with hundreds of developers already using it daily for provisioning infrastructure, monitoring usage, and automating cloud tasks, and it works with Claude, Cursor, VS Code, Windsurf, and other MCP-compatible clients.
Of course it's free. Developers can just add more memory, add more memory, add more memory. And now they can do it using natural language instead of having to figure out where the config file is. I do like this, I like to make fun of it just because it is sort of dangerous, right? Like for a long time before we had infrastructure as code, we had ClickOps, and it was very difficult to make a repeatable environment using ClickOps. If you're generating natural language environments, you're going to have a really hard time getting that the same 2 times. But it is sort of for experimentation and for prototyping and for just quick and dirty things. It is pretty cool.
Terrified of developers going, I told my MCP to generate my Postgres database and you go make that work in prod.
I asked it to write me a thing that would never fail ever.
Then I got the bill and my CFO told me I was fired. CFOs really should not listen to our podcast. We make fun of them.
Oh, they don't. Don't worry. They don't.
They don't listen to us at the day job either. So
exactly.
So we did take homework last week, both Ryan and I, though we have completely failed because we both tried to watch the video and it was so boring that we got about 10 minutes into it and we're like, yeah, we shouldn't have made that promise. So the guide to platform engineering is good blog post. The video, it's a recording of a conference talk and it is exactly what it sounds like. And it's very similar to what's in the article and didn't get into a lot of details because I did fast forward it. And then I used the power of YouTube to ask AI Gemini a bunch of questions of the video to help me understand it so I didn't have to watch the whole thing. And I will look for better content for you guys for a future Cloud Journey episode about this topic. How's that?
I wasn't even smart enough to get the AI summarization. I just turned it off.
I got about 5 minutes into it. And
well, the thing with the Gemini summarization of YouTube videos is it's awesome. And I only learned about it because I was like, when we were doing all of our prediction shows and we try to figure out who had how many times to say AI on stage, just I would take it and I go put it in this tool like Otter AI and I get the transcript and then I do a grep on it to how many times this thing was set. And it was like a really painful process. And then I saw the Gemini little star icon that they now put on everything. And you're like, oh, it has Gemini. And I click. And I was like, tell me how many times I said AI. And it like pooped up an answer in like 30 seconds. I'm like, oh my God, this just changed my entire life.
Yeah.
So now I use it all the time on YouTube videos that I don't like. There's a lot of boring content. I'm like, hey, tell me where in the video this happens, because that's what I'm actually here for. And it'll tell you like, oh, it's a timestamp, blah. And so I can skip through all the noise and tap here to like this video and subscribe BS nonsense that is not every YouTube influencer video you've ever seen and get to what I cared about. So it's good.
And you can see it being built in natively too, to go off on a rant, but or tangent. I've long hated the searching for how to do something and it's a video. And now in the search results, it tells you like where in the video that happens. Like it's fantastic.
Or like, you can literally say, hey, this video doesn't have steps. Can you break it down into steps for me? And it'll actually create the steps. So that's good too. Like, so there was a cooking recipe I was watching.
That's
and I was
a great idea.
I was like, oh, could you turn this into a recipe that I could use to make this at home and in the proper order of preparation? And it took what they did and turned into something I could actually follow, which was great. So.
Oh, that's genius. I'm totally going to do that because I'm constantly doing that with like electronics or car stuff.
I was doing plumbing earlier today, and I was like watching YouTube videos, and I was like, just tell me where this bolt, how I detach the bolt.
Yeah.
Well, another thing that I'm using AI a lot for is like I'll see a symbol like on your dash, or you'll see something somewhere and you're like, what is this? You'll take a photo of it like with Claude and say, hey, what is this? And it'll literally tell me exactly what it is and how I would use it and why it's there where it is. It's kind of nice. It's like it changes a lot. And then we were having one of our neighbors got some birds that were very loud and noisy, and I did not quite recognize what the sound was. So I literally recorded the sound and put it into one of the models, and literally it told me exactly who the bird was, et cetera, which was just fascinating. So
what foods are dangerous for it?
Yeah, what things not to feed it. What regulations it's violating in the city ordinance that I can complain about. Things like that. Minor quibbles. But that problem got fixed. Whatever method you want to go home with.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
Well, it's been another fantastic week here at the Cloud. We will see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
And that's all for this week in Cloud. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Archera. Be sure to click the link in our show notes to learn more about their services. While you're at it, head over to our website at thecloudpod.net, where you can subscribe to our newsletter, join our Slack community, send us your feedback, and ask any questions you might have. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.